Holy shit, it's been a long time since I've been on here. I mentioned before that I moved, so I think a lot of that just got me all bogged up and hadn't been on. So I have a lot to talk about. Okay, well, what have I been doing? So I've been building, I've really transitioned myself a lot the last couple of years, especially the last 6 months. Now that we have Claude code and all these other things, all these ideas just keep getting built, and you can customize them for whatever the hell you want to do. So the most recent thing I'm doing is, instead of a Google sheet or an Excel thing for my records, for my taxes to see my performance, what I've done is I have a couple different strategies and different accounts, like a more of an investing strategy that the trades are 6 months to multiple years if they're working well and the earnings are coming out well and things like that. And then a trading strategy, which I, if they screw up, it could be a 1 day trade. Otherwise, it could be a few months maybe. But a lot of times it's like this 10 days sweet spot type of a thing. So there's that account. So what I do is I made this tool on Cloud Code where I track like anything you want, like average winner to average loser, the time held, in IRR, whatever the hell you want to track. And then I voice it in. I love yammering and talking. I don't like writing, and I hate like hunting and pecking and typing in my results. It's a pain in my ass. So now what I do is I just go on there and I just talk my trades in. I'm like, I bought this at this price and yada, yada, yada. And it just pumps it in and does it all for me. So I'm finding that to be super fun. So that's a little cool thing that I've been doing for myself. Before that, I gave this to YWR, Eric at YWR. It's a Substack that talks about stocks. He's great and he's got good ideas and stuff. So I've been sharing some of my stuff with him. And the thing I did recently is I read David Gardner's book, Rule Breaker Investing, the Motley Fool guy, and I thought it was really good. I mean, I haven't read a lot of investing books lately, but this is just a really simple, good book. But what it helped me with is I've been doing these AI reports for qualitative stuff because everyone has data, but it's interesting to me to have like the stuff that an analyst would have to dig for. So I'm trying to ask interesting questions. So I took a lot of his questions that would define what he calls a rule breaker stock, and I made some tweaks of my own, and I'm going to probably add more questions. But I'm not sure how many questions it is. It's like 8 or 10 or something. But it looks at things that are a little harder to figure out. And the machines now are getting so good at digging this stuff up. It's not perfect, but it's pretty darn good. So especially for new IPOs or foreign stocks where you don't really know what's going on or what's coming out because technology is changing so fast, you can use these questions to really make I make a database for myself. So I have a few thousand right now. And you pay for that over time, and it's not that much money. It's like $300 or $400 to build the whole database up. And now I can scan everything by. So I look at price action, of course, and I have a system for that I've built. But I also have like my old school trader brain, like sentiment, and I'm going to get into that later in the podcast because I had some of that stuff come up recently that I wanted to share. But back to the AI stuff. So now I have this database, and I have a few of them, and sometimes they agree with each other, which I like. But so I can look at like what are the best 50 stocks in the world in terms of all these qualitative factors, like founder led, management has a lot of equity in the game, or skin in the game with equity, and they have tight margins that don't move around a lot even in the bad times. They're changing the behavior of how people do things, how people work, how people play. They are just impacting the world in a way that's profound somehow, or they have an extreme competitive advantage that's hard to break, a moat or whatever you want to call it, or they're hard to displace, and lots of different questions around that, or their risk is lower because of that. This is like for the actual business, and then the stock price can be different. Like the business could be great and the stock could be good, it could be shit. It depends on people are stuck, they're buying it, it's in favor, it's out of favor, and then you go into like what's the price action look like. So it's kind of combining like trading and investing, and as I lengthen my time frame and try to move around my money more effectively, I've kind of gotten into these different things, which I love. So it's kind of the evolution that I've had. So back to old school, how to look at the market in an old school way, which still works, just doesn't happen as often. We had an investor day in Nvidia. And that's when Nvidia pumped over $200 a share, if you remember that. And I was watching on my screen, and Nvidia mentioned all these other public companies who were participating in joint ventures with them or whatever, just like Zoom and Starbucks and all this shit, just one after another. And all the stocks just went up $2, it went up $3. And I watched it all. And I remember thinking like, man, this is really sort of unhealthy in the short term that Nvidia broke a big round psychological number at 200. Everyone seems to have bought in and went way up the next day to like, I don't even know, 208, 210. I forget the exact prices. Don't quote me on it. And at that point, I just felt very cautious. And I didn't just flip and get short or anything like that, but I eventually did get short and hedged my portfolio, and I'm out of that short now. I'm back to just being long again. But the reason I got super cautious, and this is just, it's nothing more than like, it's not Michael Burry is right, he's wrong, or we're in a bubble, none of that shit. Like, it doesn't matter. It's more about just price action. It's about people bought a lot at a bad price and they're stuck and it's not comfortable and they have to get out. And I just felt like it was that simple. And then when all the stuff came about, all the stories came, then after it starts leaking down, you get like Google's going to take over Nvidia's margins and Michael Burry says the depreciation's off, and then the market unravels. And then everyone goes from this can't go down, and then it breaks the technicals and everyone thinks, oh shit, it's going to go down way more. And then of course you have the seasonal holiday period coming up and it's the perfect time to flush everybody out, and then it starts bleeding back up, and now everyone's just kind of either out or they're stuck in the middle and they don't know what to do. And I just think it makes so much sense that it makes no sense, but from an old school perspective, the positioning made a lot of sense to me. So that's something I always watch for. A couple other things, just random thoughts. I'm always watching mRNA because everyone hates the vaccines and it got so politicized, and they have a lot of smart people working there and a lot of money. It's so beat up. I don't know when that's ever going to be a thing, but it's a stock I just kind of watch and wonder about. I don't have a position. I look at Bitcoin right now, and my thought on Bitcoin is I sold my Bitcoins in like the mid upper 90,000s too early, but I'm out of them. But so my thought on that is that MSTR, Michael Saylor, they're kind of like a I don't give a shit buyer of the Bitcoin at any price, but they can't play their game without a big premium. They can't be issuing stock and buying it back because they're back to par or even a discount right now on their underlying holdings. So the game is kind of on hold a little bit. So they kind of need to let Bitcoin recover. At least that's the research I've done. It doesn't work as well when it's gone down. So what that means, they don't have to sell or puke, or they're not stuck. They don't have to do that. But it means that this big buyer is no longer there. And then you had so much euphoria, so many memes, so many retail traders get long after the election and feel really comfortable over 100,000. And now we're sitting here in the mid 80s. What are we at today? 90. And I just think that this thing goes down more. It goes down, I don't know if it gets under 50. It could, but I think it goes down in the 60s and threatens all the election buyers. It might take a little time, but because you took the big buyer out of the market and everybody's up to their gills in Bitcoin already. And that just is not a good combination, I don't think, for right now. So I could be wrong, but I'm not touching it. I don't care if I'm wrong because I don't need to make big mistakes. And that's kind of my thing. Don't make big mistakes. It's been my mantra that I've been trying to focus on. So I see people stuck and I see the buying just on pause. Yeah, I'm thinking about what else I can share. I'm really liking... So the other thing that's weird is that now that I've built all these tools and I've automated a lot of stuff, I have emails coming to me with different scans, and I have a summarizer that I have all this research coming in, and it summarizes each one of the emails for me, and then I can click on the link to see the whole email if I want. So I've made all these shortcuts where I can do a lot more with a lot less time, which sounds great, but I like doing the work and I enjoy getting up and looking at everything. So it's not necessarily made me want to, I don't have other things to necessarily fill my day with that people think that sounds crazy. Like, you should be golfing, you should be doing it. It's like, yeah, well, I just happen to like this a lot. So I'm sick in the head that way. But I'm going to keep doing this and keep making more tools, more things. And sometimes you get inspirations from books or other people where you can add more questions and improve your process. But I still think that a lot of the fundamental stuff, you can use the machine to really build a system or figure it out. And then I've harped on this before, and I haven't shared exactly what I do, but price action, figuring out a way to track price action, however you do it. There's moving average, crossover systems. I told you I use like a McClellan basket system with RSIs and things. I'm not really like super indicator technical guy, but I feel like when you build something that you could say, okay, if this trends up, this is a good way for it to trade. If it breaks down, this is a good way to figure it out. If you can come up with something like that and do that work for yourself, you start to rely on that in tandem with your other things, and you use signals and emails and alerts, and it keeps your behavioral monkey out of the market, which costs you a lot of money sometimes. And then this, kind of to wrap the podcast up, this old school Nvidia buying it over 200 on the investor day with all the other companies going up that they mentioned. Just noticing things like that, like it just paying attention and noticing like, oh, that's interesting. That happened. Or MSTR on the way down, all of a sudden he says he's never going to be selling the stock and issuing it, and he's doing it. And, all of a sudden things change, and just noticing along the way. And I think that stuff always matters, and it never goes out of style. But a lot of times, since everything's so hyper quick with information, like on Twitter and all this stuff, that something important happens and then everyone forgets it, and then 10 days later it matters. So just kind of keeping that in mind. Another random thought is that China, I feel like commodities in China are gearing up to do well. I know China's been a little heavy lately, but if there's a national arms race in AI, I don't see how the spending is going to slow down over there either. And those valuations are lower. They have more power. I know that they have a chip deficit compared to what we have, but I like those stocks. Commodities seem ready. That's just some of the price action stuff I'm watching. Yeah, I think that's it for now, but good to be back on here.